Good day, everyone. We're grateful that you all were able to stay for our town hall. It's the second one that we've had this year. It will be an opportunity to bring you up to speed on some of the things happening at the church and some other goodies. So what we'll do is initially we'll start with sharing our names and pronouns and our positions here at Forefront, just to familiarize you with the leadership here. Who will, Suzanne, yeah, you want to start, Suzanne?
Hello. Okay. My name is Suzanne Eliezer. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the interim Kid Stuff Director.
Hi, I go by Dee. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm part of the leadership team here.
Hi, Jonathan Judge, a member of the leadership team, pronouns he, him.
Hi, I'm Priscilla, she, her. I'm on LT.
Josh Raderly, he, him, and yes, I know, and one of the co-pastors of Teaching and Community.
Hello, my name is Mac, pronouns she, they. I'm the operations pastor, and this is Tilly, my service dog.
Reverend Venida, she, her, hers, one of the co-pastors of Teaching and Community.
Angela Lockett, I am the worship pastor here, pronouns she, hers.
Robbie Klein, technical director, he, him.
Morgan Johnson, I'm on the leadership team, and my pronouns are he, him.
Thank you. So,
Introduce yourself.
Natasha, she, her, hers. I'm the bookkeeper. Nobody knows me. I'm the bookkeeper.
So over the summer, actually on July 8th, the leadership team and the executive council came together to have a retreat over Mac and Diana's house. It was a beautiful time. One of the things that we did was look at our values and vision to determine if, in fact, it still fits with where we are. And we were able to make some changes and adjustments. Right now, those changes are not reflected on our website. After this meeting, they will be. But I wanted to take a minute to read you our new sort of values and vision to give you an idea of some of the things that we're prioritizing and we're thinking about as leadership. So this is our vision. We are an independent, interdenominational, and progressive church drawing from many different traditions within the Christian faith. Progressive means our faith is always evolving and changing. We are Christians today because groups of people throughout time have progressed and evolved in their understanding of God. We embrace many different styles and expressions of worship and belief. There isn't one right way to worship. The history of church is a never-ending journey of discovering who God is. Who we are, what we do, and who we want to become is deeply rooted in our faith in Christ. Jesus is at the center of everything we believe. The death and resurrection of Jesus Christ is vital to our faith, practice, and spiritual journey. The values of our church community are drawn from the life of Jesus. We desire to emulate him so that Christ's prayer of renewal on earth, as it is in heaven, may become a reality. We believe that we're helping to usher in the next 500 years of Christianity. Every 500 years, we see a major historical shift in the way that Christianity is embodied amongst cultures, nations, and communities. We believe that we're in the midst of another historical shift that will renew and revitalize the gospel of Jesus Christ. We do this through our 3 core values and our 5 theological distinctives. So one of the things that we do talk about quite a bit here is that while many of us have different beliefs, we come together and unite around our values. Number 1, worship reimagined. There isn't one right way to worship. We embrace many different styles and expressions of worship. We celebrate the mystery of Jesus, our scriptures, and our faith. We are more interested in asking questions than prescribing all the answers in the spirit of the ancient Jewish practice of Midrash. Every Sunday we preach from our scriptures, but sometimes we will say, I don't know. We sing about God every Sunday, but don't be surprised when we use different pronouns to refer to God. We take communion every Sunday where all are welcome at the table, but taking communion is not required. There are no doctrinal or belief requirements to volunteer or lead in church. Where we re-examine and reimagine beliefs in sermons and through community. We're here to reclaim the good news. Uncommon kinship. We are a diverse community that's committed to generously caring for one another, no matter who you are or where you are in your journey. Valuing unity over uniformity means we are united by our shared values, and out of those come a variety of beliefs. Our value of uncommon kinship means that unexpected friendships from across various identities, whether in person or virtually. We might generously coordinate meal trains or grocery drop-offs for a congregant we may have never met. We might meet someone of a different political party in a small group. We might find ways to embrace the concept of a chosen family when our biological family refuses to affirm our identity. We might celebrate coming out at church with our chosen family. We believe in coexisting and growing together with people who have different views on prayer, scripture, and other topics. Our Kinship Cafe and meet and greet time bring people of various political and theological views together, as well as various races and genders. And then finally, radical equity. We aspire to change the world first by changing people's lives. For starters, anyone can preach, lead, get married, and be baptized regardless of your gender identity or sexual orientation. But more than that, we believe in more than equal opportunity, but equity of outcomes. We preach that Jesus didn't treat people equally, but he treated people equitably, with particular care for the marginalized. We understand the gospel to be political. Fully living out the gospel includes engaging the world through politics. We are intentional about racial, gender, and sexual diversity in all levels of leadership and our community as part of our commitment to being an anti-racist, affirming, gender equity-centered church. With each message, each relationship, and each conversation, we aim to contribute and collaborate to a more just and generous expression of the Christian faith. So we're happy to talk more. If you heard something that you'd like further explanation on, just let us know. I'll move now to my colleague, Priscilla.
That was great. Let's have another round of applause for Jillian, who rolled off earlier this month from the LT. Thanks for your service. We'll miss you. We miss you already. And we just onboarded 2 new LT members this past week. Should I name them? Yeah. Rima Boyo and Adrian Wallace. Neither of whom is here at the moment, but they will soon be commissioned officially. They'll stand trial. I'm just kidding. They'll stand up here and we'll be like, yay, welcome. And also we continue to recruit because we need lots of help on the leadership team. And I'll be creeping and looking at y'all. And so if you want to be nominated or you're interested in what the leadership team does, flag one of us down and we'll talk to you. All right, on to Josh. Oh, right, okay, so Phil, who's not here today because he's not feeling super well, is rolling off in December, January. Send him some healing vibes at the moment. He's also served 3 years and is well deserving of rest and not to deal with the shenanigans anymore.
So many of you participated in our All Church survey, specifically like 117 of you. So thank you for doing that. So now we're going to take an opportunity and just share with you some of the highlights of things from that. So first, Dee and Priscilla are going to share interesting or encouraging stats about the survey.
Yeah. So 119 people from church took the survey. 85% of those people, that's 101 people, said they consider Forefront their home church. 13% of those people said they're unsure, and 2% said Forefront is not their home church. We think the reason that is, our speculation is that people are deciding if they want to be involved in church again, which is a common thing here. 60% of the church comes to church by themselves. 50% of the church is between the ages of 25 and 34. 30% are 35 and 44, and 9% or more are 45 to 55 years old. So we skew a little bit young. Half of the church identifies as white. 48% are people of color. We've got Black people, Latino people, Latinx, Latine, whatever you want to say, Asian folks, West Indian people. Wait, we also have like African American. All right, sweet, I like that distinction. I don't know what it means, but yeah, sure. And then we have 41% say that they attend church in person. specifically for community and relationships.
And then some stats just to sort of mull over that we wanted to kind of keep on your radar, that maybe are things that like the LT and the staff were being very mindful of like they were just kind of, maybe one might say concerning or insightful or things that were signs to us that we just need to continue to work on this and have conversations, particularly conversations with you all to try to understand some of this more so we can continue to figure out how we can increase engagement and satisfaction with the church overall. So one of those questions is, which is the most important aspect when choosing a church? So two of those were 60% of you said community and 20% said spiritual growth. There were other options, but those were the top two that were the highest percentages of people, what was most important to people when looking for a church. The second question was, what are the top two aspects most important to you at Forefront specifically? So this got into the nitty gritty. Now this was interesting. 77% of you said the sermon, and 62% said the music.
Hey.
What's most interesting is that like in the options, there was like small groups or neighborhood groups or like events. But folks, those weren't the ones that won out when asked what was the most important thing to you about Forefront. It was actually, even though 60% had originally said community, when it came to specifically to Forefront, it was like the music and the sermons. So honestly, I have no idea what that is about. I want to know more about that. So like send us emails, please, and one-on-ones and let us know because this is very interesting and sort of piqued up interest. Let's see here. So one of the other things one of the things we were thinking about with that was, are people primarily looking for community on Sundays mostly, or are they also looking for community outside of Sundays? Because, there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect as far as people who engage in church outside of the Sunday experience, which isn't too shocking because a lot of people are just starting to like dip their feet back into church. And so like, just Sunday is kind of a new thing, just coming back to that. And so sometimes the interest to go further is harder. Some people, like Sunday morning is overwhelming, but like a little small group or gathering at an event outside of Sunday feels better to sort of ease back in. So it's just interesting to see how people are navigating that as they enter back into church. And just trying to figure out like what are people wanting, what are people needing, particularly if community is so important. Are people finding that on Sundays enough that they don't necessarily want it outside of that? Or does that just look like we just have to be used to having a diverse amount of opportunities and spaces for people to opt in or opt out? These are all questions we're asking. We don't know. And everything I said could be wrong. But we want to hear from you more. We want to understand. We want to know what you're hoping, what you're looking for. So please just continue to communicate that to us so that we can continue to strengthen our church. So in summary, a little less than half of the church says they feel they're moderately or slightly connected. And the other half would say that they feel very connected. So this is kind of interesting. So the challenge for us is moving forward is to see how to get the other half of the church to maybe feel a proper sense of belonging. Because moderately to neutral in satisfaction, it doesn't mean that people aren't satisfied, but they're not like very satisfied. They're not like super excited or really feeling great about the church over the hills. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. But we're trying to get a sense and to get a feeling for why that could be as we move through that. I think D is next.
So with all of these insights that we have, there's always more and more questions, right? I always have more questions. If any of you know me, I have more questions. Recently, Pew Research Center did a nationwide survey of churches in America, and some of the results were quite similar to ours. So in the States, of people who go to church, half of them attend once or twice a month, which is about the same as what we have here. So outside of Sunday morning, are people able to connect if they aren't going to small groups or other church activities during the week? And if you're not, then it can be hard to feel connected to that community. Josh gave a sermon a couple weeks ago about making friends as an adult and how hard it can be, especially in New York, and encouraged us to be very intentional about that process. So how do we as a church also collectively do that intentionally? I see many of you here have been part of Kinship Cafe on Sundays, and that is one of the great ways that we have loved getting to know each other as we're here already, and we get to talk more about what we just heard and our histories and our own experiences. And that is a way that people can find other folks that have similar experiences or insights. Aside from that, we have some more things coming up, and we want to talk some about some of the practical ways that people can plug into our community. So we have ministries, practices, and programming. So I'll pass it on to our EC.
Wow, that was a lot harder than it needed to be. I don't know why I couldn't get the mic out of the stand. Yes, thank you, Dee. So, as they just said, so practical ministries, ways that we offer for folks to get connected and be more involved in the community. Our awesome events deacons, Kyle and, is he here? No, Theon. I was scanning. So Theon and Kyle have been awesome co-events deacons, and they organize regular community opportunities. So you can always find those at forefrontnyc.com/calendar. Another way is we're trying to provide more and more small groups. So we did a huge push to see if anyone wanted to lead a small group, and we have some really awesome new groups that just launched. We have a BIPOC specific group, a Manhattan group, a Flatbush group, come to my house please, Manifesting Change group, Reconstruct group, E&M group. We're relaunching the Mom and Dad's groups, and we just started a parents discussion group. So we're always trying to hear your feedback on the types of groups that you are looking for, and then trying to find someone to lead said group for you. So you can always go to forefrontnyc.com/groups to see what is offered there. And then just let us know if there's something that you want that isn't there yet. And then we're also bringing back more community partnerships. This is something that we were really, really intentional about pre-pandemic, and then it got pretty challenging to volunteer in person during the pandemic. And so now our Justice Deacon Shayna has been bringing back more and more opportunities for us involving environmental justice. I love that little bow, yes. There's serving food in Greenpoint, migrant clinic. There's so many different one-off community partnership opportunities that we're starting to bring back, and that'll continue to be announced as they happen. You can always join the community partnerships mailing list if you want to know about those opportunities.
So as it relates to, thank you, Mac. As it relates to practical practices, what are some of the things that we're thinking about and doing and being intentional around? They have to do with the pastoral staff making themselves available for one-on-ones. Those one-on-ones can be over tea or coffee or in our homes over dinner. Just an opportunity for us to get to know your stories. You can hear more of our stories as we continue to build community together. We've also reintroduced name tags for greeters and coffee and bagels, which has been a hit. It has been a hit. These are no ordinary bagels. So these are the things that we're attempting to do to build community and to cultivate connection. So, people feel a sense of belonging here. One of the things that we speculated about, we're not exactly sure, is whether or not people are hesitant about, as Josh mentioned, getting in there fully, being involved fully, is because of church trauma. We realize that this is such a sacred space. It's a space where people are coming back to church for the first time. We're mindful of that. We're sensitive around that. We've had conversations with individuals during our one-on-ones where they have expressed this. So it might take a while for some people to be able to feel fully comfortable coming to church. So these are the things that we continue to explore and hope to continue to address and be intentional about. Josh?
So one of the ways that we are going to try to be intentional about that is we applied for a grant that we got, which is super exciting. Yay. Yay. And this grant will be to provide like a weekend workshop, kind of a Friday, Saturday type thing with a therapist who specializes in issues around church trauma and particularly around human sexuality and family systems, and around helping create boundaries with family members who maybe have different values or beliefs and thoughts. And so this will be a free weekend workshop because of the grant. We hope to plant with another church in which we'll then use their building. And then be able to also invite their people to come and to be able to bond with people who are also experiencing church trauma in other spaces. And so this will be a really great weekend to be able to just continue to help us move forward in creating just healthy spirits and souls, not just for our community, but for how we interact with our families and family members maybe who don't align with our values or our shared experiences. So we're super excited about that, and that will be sometime in the new year that we're going to get to offer that workshop.
Excuse me, Josh, can you just mention that we applied for a couple of grants and we're still waiting?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There was another grant that we applied for the Lilly Foundation. It was a very large grant. We are still waiting to hear if we've gotten that. It was a heavy lift. And we have much thanks to Hillary, who writes grants for a living, who helped us really put that together. So we're waiting to hear if we got that grant.
So on that note, one of the opportunities of a town hall, we're not going to get in the Q&A just yet, but to prompt the question of like, what do we do with all this information about our need for community, about what we like about Forefront, but maybe what we're not getting yet from the experience that we're hoping for from our church experience that brings us here. I've been coming since 2012, and the question that we face is how to do this with all the changes we've gone through in the way we have done community. So going back to 2012, we had pretty consistent weekly small groups. I went to the one that Jonathan Williams, our founding pastor for Forefront Brooklyn, hosted at his family home, and then other people in the Carroll Gardens area would host it. And it was consistent weekly, and people were vulnerable, and they did dinner together, and they cooked, and we talked about the sermons. We had guilds for people who are writers, who are artists, photographers. We would have church-wide brunches when we had the money for that. We were able to pay for everyone to go to brunch on a quarterly basis. We would have just Epiphany feasts, right? Jonathan and Juby and their family hosted an Epiphany feast in January for the whole church to come over and eat and hang out. Angela and I know each other from small group because of how consistently we did small group together in the Ditmas Park, Kensington area. We've had many, many opportunities in the past where we were regularly and routinely in community outside of Sunday. And not only just sometimes on Sunday for brunch, but routinely outside of Sunday during the week, participating in just neighborhood activities and so forth. So the question we want to ask you is, how do we do that now? We know that small groups have preferred to start switching to, let's say, every other week. We know that sometimes our small groups are meeting like once every other month. People have schedules and they travel. The pandemic has changed a lot of our routines and our lifestyles. That might make that more challenging. So we want to think about how do we do that community part better. And also for those of you who are doing community, who are leading a small group today, who are leading guilds today, who are deacons today, let us know if we're missing something. We used to have a pretty robust small group study guide that was put out every week for small groups to use that was in concert with the sermon that everyone heard on the Sunday before. We would do that to help guide discussion. We would always make sure there was multiple hosts, even if 2 people shared the leading of a small group, so that there wouldn't be burnout or too much burden. We also encourage people to think about how to find their successors. So there are things that we did in the past, before the pandemic, before everything got destabilized from our routines and rhythms. And let us know if that's also part of how we can do community better, is being cognizant of how to support you, those of you who are doing it. And then for those of you who don't feel like you've been invited to take the lead, to lead a small group or to take an initiative to host an event, then let us tell you now. We want you. We want you to do that. Come to us. Come to any of us. Come to staff. Come to LT even with your ideas. We want to hear it because we all want to support each other in building the community that we seek. So with that, I'm going to go and turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Jonathan. Just really quick, I just want to say thank you to Alex. As you came through the door, we're doing teardown right now.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much, Alex. And for Aramis for helping. I know that it's so hard to volunteer during something so important like a town hall, so I really appreciate that you stepped up last minute to do teardown. Thank you. So another thing a big thing that came up at our last town hall is our venue, our fantastic venue here at the Roulette, what is the right way for us to spend our money, right? We had a big conversation about how we've been here a long time, we love it here, and also we're struggling financially, and it's a big part of our budget is set aside for rent. And if you were at the last town hall, people had a lot of suggestions and a lot of questions, and so the active thing that we did coming out of that was we formed a venue search committee. And so thank you to those members. I need to read it off the page. The venue search committee members were Salima, Jose, Regina, and Amber. So thank you to those of you, yes. The things that we also asked in the church survey related to our venue search involved like what types of venues are you looking for, what is most important to you in a venue, and like what's important to you about attending church on a Sunday. And so some of those major insights, an overwhelming majority highly preferred sticking to a morning service time. And so we threw it out there, do you want to stick to a 10 or 11 a.m. service, or do you want a midday service? Do you want an evening service? And by far, it skewed stay in the morning service slot. So that was very informative for our search committee as they started to look at new venues. We also asked if folks would still attend if we had to switch to an evening service time. So even though we asked you to vote on your preferred time, if we had to switch to an evening slot, would you still come? And only 33% said they would still come to an evening service. Yeah, it was very telling. So it left us with about 67% who were either unsure if they would come to an evening service or were definitely sure they would not come to an evening service. And so we took this into very high consideration. We wanted to, big priority with asking those questions was to make sure that our families with kiddos were still having an option for church. And so we said, okay, search committee, we have to find a venue that allows us to have an 11 a.m. service. We also asked what your top attributes are that you value in a church venue. We had a bunch of different options, tech experience, just so many different aspects in terms of travel, and an overwhelming majority, actually a tie for the top two that y'all voted on, was the proximity to public transit, which makes a ton of sense, and a short distance or commute time. We asked for your zip codes as well to take into consideration what does a short commute time mean. Everyone lives all over the place, but we are very spoiled being right by Atlantic Barclays where so many trains come here, and so if that is what is most convenient and most important to you when choosing a church to come to in person, we took those things into account. So with all of that, gave all that information to the search committee. The committee looked into 35 other venues. Yes. Lots of calls, lots of emails. I will say a good number of those didn't respond, but we looked into available spaces to really, really look at what do we need and what is out there and is there a match. Only 2 of those 35 seemed like possible options to really follow up with, and through lots of discussion, finding out information about the venues, while both of those options would have saved us money, neither of those met all of our needs, both as a staff and as well as what you as a congregation told us was most important to you. So we are very, very lucky with the quality that the Roulette provides us, and while it does come with a cost, it remains our best option for a venue, 100%. And I do just want to say Roulette was kind enough to offer us a temporary extension on our contract while we figured all of this out. They've been in the loop with us on how we're struggling financially. We love it here, but we just need a little more time before we sign a long-term contract, and they were super helpful with us and collaborative in that experience. And I'm happy to say that last month we officially signed our renewal lease. So now it's Natasha's turn.
All right, so I'm giving the financial update. We had, okay, I'm just gonna read it. As many of you know, after our last town hall at the start of 2023, we made you aware that Venida and Joshua received temporary 20% cuts to their salary. Mac would go part-time, and Angela would receive a 10% cut. We also had to cut many of our budget expense lines and live very simply with only necessities for ministry. With those budget cuts, our 2023 budget was $429K was the current with budget cuts, and it's like about $35K monthly. And with that, our year-to-date need would have been $315K. I'm just going to say that, and the year-to-date received is $325K. So we have brought in $10,000 more than anticipated. However, this is with the cut budget, not with the comfortable or ideal budget. Our comfortable budget that we were aiming for would be about $472K, which is about $39K a month. The year-to-date need would have been $354, and the received would have been $325. Which means we are currently short around $29K at this point in the year. We have consistently been short around $5,000 to $6,000 most months. The need is $39,000. We usually bring in about $33,000 a month. And so if we continue to fall short for October through December, it's plausible to assume we will add an additional $15,000 to the $29,000 shortfall. I know why they made me do this, which means we will likely end the year with a $47,000 shortfall from our comfortable budget ideal. If we're unable to raise that additional $47,000 between now and the year end, we would effectively, if we were able to raise that additional, able to raise the additional $47,000 between now and year end, we would effectively be able to restore Benita, Josh, and Angela's salaries, restore ministry budget lines, and live comfortably. That's it.
So big thank you to all of you who have really made it possible for us to be on a better track than we were, because that deficit was much larger at the beginning of the year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As a fundraising committee, we've done several different things this year, and we just want to kind of give you an overall update because it's because of you that these things have been successful. So we've done 4 different initiatives. One was just most recent, which was the concert and the merch sales, which after we paid the expenses of what it costs to run a concert, we brought in $12,350. Yes. And then with the increase in reoccurring giving campaign, which we did in the spring, so this was either to get people to start a new gift or for people to increase their current gifts, we increased our annual giving by $43,000. Yeah. The catch-22 in all of that was that just as people increased their gifts, also it prompted people to stop their reoccurring gifts because there's many people who no longer attend on Sundays, and they had moved during the pandemic, and now they have found other churches, and this prompted them to finally start giving elsewhere. And so just as new money started to come in, also old money went out. And so we just about broke even with that trade-off. The other thing was the Oasis grant that I just mentioned. That was for $5,000. And then the year-end campaign, which we are about to do, we'll be starting on Giving Tuesday, and that will go all the way through the end of the year. So the hope is that really the goal for that will be, that 47 extra above the 33 that we would expect for the month, for us to hopefully maybe come close to ending the year in a better place. So that's that. Now, to give you just those quick stats around the increase in giving campaign, around the increase. So overview, because I think this really highlights the commitment of our community. 37 people increased their reoccurring giving in our church. 37 people. 26 people started a new reoccurring gift, investing in our church. And 13 people stopped, decreased, or put their gift on hold. And I want us to clap for them because they sustained our church for a long time. And we're grateful for their investment.
All right. I got some good news for y'all, though. So we have been able to hire a new Kid Stuff director. Who happens to be sitting right in front of me. Should I? Oh, right. So it's Kevin. He's gonna be working in November through December and shadowing with Suzanne, who's been holding down the fort for the past several weeks. Suzanne. And this is more exciting. We have restored Angela's salary. Very happy about that.
So now we would like to. We were. if you noticed that we were speaking very quickly, it was because we thought we were going to run out of time. We have a lot of time for comments, questions, concerns. We want this to be a conversation. So we have a couple of mics.
Maybe people can come up
We
to the
ask
mic.
you to come on up
A true town hall.
at True Town Hall. Who will be the first? Yes. Yeah, two.
And also, so virtual folks, if you have questions, please put them in the chat now because there is like a 2 to 4 minute delay. So we want to be able to read some of your questions aloud as well. But yes, if you're in the house and you have a question, come on up to the mic.
Okay, hello everyone.
Suzanne.
So one thing I just wanted to call attention to is a lot of the families we lost during COVID, or a lot of the people we lost coming back after COVID were families. For obvious reasons, logistics. We are building, we average about 1 or 2 new families a month, which is fantastic. But I think it really is gonna require a bigger group effort of just people you know, people in your lives who have kids, letting them know about Forefront. Because we have seen a pretty significant decrease pre-COVID to now. Like there were Sundays we'd have 35 kids downstairs. And I think the top we've had, which again, we are rebuilding, we are doing an amazing job. I think the most we've had is like 18. Our Halloween party, we had 19 kids. So it's like certain events, like we do get a bigger attendance. So just to put that all in your brains, people you work with, people who you're close to, you love, if they have kids, just mention Forefront, and that it's like, imagine like learning about God's love at Forefront versus how most of us learned it other places. Like they are not gonna have the church trauma that most of us had. So yes, that's just my little spiel. And Kevin, I could not be more happy that you are coming into this role. So yes. That's just my little plug for our families and kiddos. Yeah.
We have to hold that one.
All right. Thanks for a very thorough update. Mary, all pronouns are cool with me. Thanks for a very thorough update. Since you ended on a money note, my question will be focused on that. How much of the giving that we generated do you feel like is sustainable? Obviously, you talked about trying to get more families involved. I guess other thoughts on what else we could be doing.
That's a great question. I would say a majority of our gifts are sustainable. I will say that there's about $30,000 currently annually that we expect of people who no longer are here in New York City, but are still investing in us financially. Some of those who have already found other churches but realize where we're at, and so they're splitting their giving. So at some point there is 30,000 that will likely transition again. We still are in community, in conversation, and with those folks, and they're deeply love us and invested, but that's about the answer to your question. Your second question was? What else can we do? Anyone?
I have some ideas, but are we continuing the fundraising committee?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why, that's why I was asking, because she's setting me up. We did have a discussion about it, and we have some ideas of ways to generate more traffic. You know what? Generate more traffic into the church, like bring more people in, and also let people who may not go to church or may not want to go to church but still want to support a space like this, giving them the opportunity to find more out about Forefront and to contribute, because we actually, It just so happens that I have a few people in my community who donate to Forefront who never come to church, and it's only because of their relationship to my larger community that they have church trauma, and so they're weird about coming, but they're respective of what we do here and are willing to support. One of the things that we had talked about is possibly having a workshop at one of the centers, either the LGBTQIA+ center in Brooklyn or the one in Manhattan, on something spiritual related, but more generic, not like a Sunday service, that we could invite other people from that community to let them know a little bit about what we're doing here.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if there are other ideas that folks have for the fundraising committee, definitely pass those along. And you don't have to be in person. We have someone, Lisa, who is extremely active, a part of our virtual congregation, and we just encourage everyone to submit their ideas and things of that nature. Abby?
I'll say something real quick. About a decade ago, we had this initiative that was just really thriving that I know personally and for some of us we'd really love to bring back, which is called Celebration Generosity. And it was a community initiative where we were raising a ton of money and most of it was being given away. And then some of it was going to Forefront. Something about the energy of that initiative and how we did it, it was just gangbusters. I mean, one year it was, I think, $250K raised. Now, the church a decade ago was a very different church. We had the Manhattan and the Brooklyn locations. There was a very deep purses for kind of the quiet givers of like some very wealthy givers. But this is something that, you know, it got Forefront Brooklyn started. Like Forefront Brooklyn exists because of Celebration Generosity, because we were an initiative that year. It's like, let's give away a lot of Forefront Manhattan's money to start this new thing, which obviously it's part of the initiative, but that was one of the few initiatives that year. So if that can come back and, you know, we think of an amazing organization that we feel like we can, you know, give a leg up to, and then that supports us as well, it's a win-win for everybody. So keep that on your radar.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Robbie. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions, Anonymous? If you don't want to walk to the mic, we will walk the mic to you. We just gave Mary a hard time, but we...
I just want to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, yeah, I think just something I want to vocalize, just sort of have everyone be on their mind, kind of, you know,
And new questions are always welcome.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah.
I'll be super quick, I promise. Regarding the budget cuts, like with you guys helping out for people that are needing help when they're going through rough times, is that something that's a separate budget for you guys? Like, are you guys like will you guys will ever have to like cut that, or is that something like you guys will constantly keep no matter what happens?
Yes.
I'll answer that. When we went through deciding all of these major budget cuts that we announced in March, that line where we are here to support you all was unanimous. We will never cut that. Like, that is such a priority for us. I mean, I guess I can't say never, like that's so definitive, but it was one of our number one priorities to keep that line because it's so a part of our values. And so we chose to keep that over, say, salaries, right? It was more important to us than our own salaries. I know other people are raising their hands. Of the people raising hands, I'll say too, please, you can, if you have feedback and suggestions, you can put those in the form at forefrontnyc.com/feedback, okay? You can also scan the QR code on the screen because we do want to move on to other questions. So if you have a new question, can you raise your hand? Great.
Okay, great. Before you speak, I just want to shout out Amber, our care team deacon, just so folks know who she is. Thank you, Amber.
Hi. I just had a question, because I think one of the things that Josh had said back at like the original town hall was that in terms of demographics, the people who give the most tend to be within an older age range. I think in the statistics that were shown on the screen today, I think something like 55% of the church is 25 to 34, and then 35 to 44, and then up. in terms of like a lot of the outreach, it seems like it's being geared towards a more social media savvy demographic. I'm not part of that. And so I'm just wondering, in terms of leveraging sort of the community we're trying to reach out to and also the needs of the church, how are you trying to balance the need to find younger people, to bring energy, blah, blah, et cetera, but also people who do have financial resources to support the church in a meaningful way? Because it does seem like there's a bit of a disconnect in terms of what we're talking about.
I would say I'm a part of a clergy group for Park Slope. All these pastors get together and we just talk about our churches and things we're going through, right? And all of the churches that are in that group mostly have older congregants, 50 plus, and they're like, wish that they had younger congregants. And so they're like, how do we bring younger people into our church? How do we bring younger people into our church? And I'm like, how do we bring older people into church? How do we bring older people into our church? And we're like, could we swap? Could we switch? What could we do, right? Like, Red Rover, send some more right over. But one of the challenges that I think that I've been able to identify in that is that our worship styles are very different. So there's a generational difference in worship styles, particularly, that I notice is the most prominent thing. They're just much more traditional often in their worship style, and so those churches often are drawing an older demographic versus the contemporary style that we do, or the gospel style that maybe doesn't always identify with that group as much. But honestly, if you think about it, like, something in your life has to cause you to question the worldview you've grown up with, or that you've seen or been exposed to. And so there's a level there of the younger generation seems more quick to question things right now. And this is a space that's really open for questions and less certainty. And so I think it's also just like who we draw based on our values and the things we're appealing to as well. And what we offer in worship style.
Yeah, and it's something we're paying attention to, even as it relates to ensuring that this particular group, maybe some folks who are Gen Xers and things of that nature, feel a sense of belonging. I've spoken to some folks, in their 50s, like me, who are feeling like, is Forefront for me? So that's something we're thinking about. There is a small group that we're starting called Manifest Change. It's not only for Gen Xers or people who are older. However, we feel like it is a good place if people are, in a particular age bracket, to consider coming together to understand that while, yes, most of the folks are between 25 and 35, we see, you as well. So let's just keep that in mind, that this is something that we do talk about, we think about, and we are trying to adjust and accommodate for. So
I will say that having people who have varying ages on the staff, I think, will go a long way to helping us further that long term. People seeing representation, seeing themselves when they walk into a space.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what sort of along the lines of what I was going to say is that, I find it very interesting because I am a Gen Xer, and so I guess I play so young that But, and also for those that are more technologically challenged as I am, it would be, how do we reach our generation if people are not necessarily going on the Insta chat, the Insta Snap, the cart chat, whatever the things are, the Facebook, you know what I mean, case in point. So where it really becomes important is us reaching out one-on-one to our community, sharing about our church with others, sort of like Suzanne had said with the kids, right? To invite people to church, to trust that what we have is accessible for everyone, and to not disqualify or feel like you have to hide this part of your life. So it's good, to share what you found with others.
The next question's here.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melody. This is my first time in this building. Also, thank you. Hi. You all seem incredible and wonderful, and I feel really lucky to be at this point in your evolution. And my question is a little bit higher altitude. It's, have you all ever grappled with or considered a North Star for the year that informs the way that you approach community and events? So this is me putting my former teacher hat on, right? When we had a curriculum for the year, it really formulated how I wanted my students to grapple with particular content, how I wanted them to learn different mediums, right? And I do understand that there has to be continuity, right, from year to year, maybe in structure, but could determine sort of what sort of events do we have that are geared towards this idea or theme that we want to grapple with as a community all together, and that's what our small groups are about. Or maybe that's what something that came to mind was an intergenerational exchange. What does it look like to have reverse mentorship, where you are in a group intentionally trying to ask your elders, you know, what have you learned, but it's tied to a North Star. So yeah, just something.
I love that.
I'm going to read a question from the virtual community, and then we'll continue going for another, say, 5-10 minutes or so. Daniel Jose, who has COVID right now. Sorry, Daniel Jose. We're praying for you. He says, is there any way to partner or work with some other important spiritual places, like seminaries, so that we can create community and essentially advertise in that way? And then in parentheses, he says, low-key, just looking for a reason to combine my two homes. Because he's now in seminary. I know, very exciting.
I'm going to answer their question, and then Daniel Jose's.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Did I interrupt a question? Oops.
Yeah, it's okay. So
Well,
it's okay.
an answer to Melanie.
Yeah, it was asked, but we just didn't answer.
I'm so sorry.
Well,
We wrote it down
we
as a
can-
great idea.
Can we just speak to it a bit and then go to Daniel Jose's? Love that. Thank you so much. Welcome. Thank you for being here. First timer. Yeah. And love that idea. As you were speaking, I was thinking about the series planning that we all have once or twice a year, right? And it's where we plan the sermon series. But how beautiful would that be if we all come together and sort of incorporate your ideas, where it's not just the sermon series, it's now thinking about the events and some other programs that could parallel and align with some of our sermon series. So there's a lot there that we can continue to think about, and we just appreciate you for expressing yourself and sharing some things that we hadn't considered. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm so sorry again. Did anyone up here want to speak a little bit to Daniel Jose's idea at all? Or did we just throw it out into the ether?
To Daniel Jose's?
Yeah. I will say that we have a sort of unintentional but great tradition, I guess, that has happened at Forefront, where we end up sending a lot of our staff and other folks here at Forefront off to seminary. We've definitely inspired a lot of people to go to seminary, so I'm curious how we can follow up further with partnering with them. We've considered it before. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yes. I did make friends with the president of General Theological, which is Episcopal seminary here. And so one of the things we've been talking about are like, what are maybe ways we could partner for interns and ministry that we could maybe do together. So that is something that we are in active conversation about as well.
It's Megan, then Leslie, then Kyle,
Then Amber, and then we'll probably, yeah. Let's keep that as the cue.
Hi, my name is Megan, pronoun she, hers. So one of the reasons why a lot of Americans are not attending church, like why church attendance is dropping nationwide, is because, lots of doubts, lack of trust in the church leaders. But there was a report like about a month ago or so that said one reason is because a lot of Americans and a lot of New Yorkers definitely, and Brooklynites, is that they're too busy to attend church. We are a very busy city. People are, running around, working 40 plus hours a week, maybe doing a second job. If they have families, they have that. If they have other commitments, they have that. They have grad school. There's so much going on. So how would you work to attract people to forefront and actually squeeze in one more hour of into their already packed schedule?
Well, I would recommend, the thing that I tell people most of the time when they ask me things about the church is I encourage them to look at the past sermons and the information that we have online, because they can tune in virtually. And you can tune in on Sundays virtually, so you don't have to leave your house, which means that you don't have the commute time. You can do that from your couch. And if you're not able to watch it on Sunday for whatever reason, you can plug it in. There's times that we pull out the sermon and put it just by itself on social media, where you can just listen to it during your lunchtime while you're working. There are ways that we can get engaged without having to feel so burdened. We make it very easy by offering a lot of different options of doing it that way. And also, with the small groups some of the small groups that we have, like mine, not plugging, but we have a very flexible schedule. And one of the reasons why we have a flexible schedule is because we know that people are busy, and we try to meet when the majority of us can. And if it means that we meet instead of weekly, we meet 3 weeks in a row and then don't meet for a month, and that's what we do. We do whatever we can to engage, and we also have a chat that we talk in. So those are kind of things where you could do those things and still be able to run around in this city, although I would encourage you to slow down if you can, that you can engage with the community without having to physically be in the space.
And I will say to Benny's point, we have to reimagine what church is. It doesn't just have to be Sunday morning, right? And so whatever people make or feel church is, that's good. And that's good enough. You don't have to guilt yourself. And so just creating that space, that wiggle room for people to define it and to be engaged in it at what their comfortable level is.
Hi, Amber. I had a question related to the one earlier about the demographics with a smaller, we have a young adult population and a smaller older, and also seemingly absent teenagers. And I've just kind of wondered, where has the leadership already sort of puzzled on that, or thought? And it's not that I necessarily think, like you were saying, Josh, that churches that have other demographics in their spaces, it's not that we need to accommodate to be everything to everyone just for the sake, but how much richer we are as a community when we are intergenerational, and that speaks to the above 50 as well as the teens. And I know, bandwidth becomes like a question, what spaces and what would we need to engage teens, but I do wonder what families maybe are not coming because they maybe show up and it doesn't seem to be something speaking to their 15 and 17-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that we have been struggling with getting back. I mean, we had a very robust teen attendance. We had a lot of families that had teenage children. And unfortunately, most of those families chose to stop coming when we became affirming, right? And so, Godspeed to you. We are going to be affirming, but we have not necessarily recovered from that as far as that particular demographic. But that is something that is on our radar and on our wish list.
Mm-hmm. And just one other quick thing to that. We have had a number of preteens coming in who don't want to go downstairs, understandably, because most of our kiddos are the ages that you see running around right now, and that deters them, and makes sense. But we are trying, I'm sure Suzanne's going to speak to this a little bit, but we are trying to make note of that, speak to those parents about what those kids might want. It's more like a middle school population than a high school population, which is a great start. They're going to be high schoolers soon. And we've had volunteers say in the past few years, like, they'd be open to hosting like a weekday middle school small group or something like that, like a youth group kind of a thing. But we haven't had the kids come in to need that. So it's kind of like chicken or egg kind of a thing. But they're starting to come, and we want more of that, of course. But Suzanne.
Yes, we have about 3 or 4 individuals that are, I would say, are in the middle school group. And I think what's challenging for us, like to me, if there's one kid who needs it, then we need it. But with the staff and with the volunteers, that becomes challenging. So we're looking for the middle schoolers. One thing we're going to start, and 2 have already replied that they'd love to do it, is to kind of be our helpers downstairs and work with the kids, and then also start their own small group during the week and figuring out whether that's virtually or in person. I mean, getting 3 or 4 of them together is much easier than trying even like to get them here on a Sunday morning. I think working with their schedules individually. And again, right now there's only 4, but we hope like even as some of our kids start to age up, lesson planning downstairs has become more challenging because there's 3-year-olds up to 8-year-olds, and those are 2 very, right there, that span in and of itself. So I hope, what I predict is there soon enough will be the nursery, lower elementary, upper elementary, including middle school, and just like we'll have to kind of gear the lesson planning to all of them and just add elements to it for the older kids, but also empower them that they have a lot to teach the younger ones already.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. We're mindful of time. Kyle?
I'll be quick. Kyle Mab, he, him is. I just want to first acknowledge just the tremendous effort that you all put together just in this town hall and as a congregation. Like those of you who are on stage just hold us down, and also those of you who are not on stage who make this church run. We are such a special place. We're also fragile, and I think that that needs to be acknowledged. But yet we've persisted through so many changes, and I am so proud of this community. I'm so proud to be part of it. I think that we have something special here. So thank you for all the work that all of you do, and those of you in front of us that continue to do. I just want that to be acknowledged, and I want us also to be able to dream. We talk a lot about money, and that's really important. I like the transparency of it. But, after we restore your budgets, after we restore your salaries, what happens? I'd love for us to be able to talk about that. What's next? I want to be excited about that together as a community again. That's all. That's for the ether.
Good. Did Leslie have something? Leslie? I appreciate it.
I'm an old timer. Y'all have heard my voice so many times. I was like, let everybody else go. But no, just in the spirit of dreaming and how we continue to grow both physically and fiscally, have we put thought into our future kind of philanthropic or strategic partnerships and, again, larger sourcing of funding, but also continuing to elevate the patronage in terms of people who got money and people who are out there live in the city. That network, now that Manhattan is gone, how do we get across the water in a more strategic way to act? Ooh, yeah, that was good. Okay.
It's because you're past.
Okay, I'll come over here. Just have we thought about that in terms of strategies of how we move forward? Because again, when I think of our priorities as a church community are so relevant and are so needed, and I think it in itself will draw so many people in if we're able to expand our bandwidth a bit.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Leslie. We appreciate that. We will continue to consider that. We do have a form if you did not get a chance to comment or ask a question. We will be including that in the newsletter this week, and also, what? Oh, right. Thank you. Thanks. forefrontnyc.com/feedback. All right, and I think we need all hands on deck.